Councilmember Clayton. Here. Councilmember Kendall.
Here.
Councilmember Warner.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Quinn. Here. Mayor Moore.
Here.
Please stand for a moment of silent prayer, a moment of reflection. We will now salute the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As to compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in the following manner. The annual notice was forwarded to the Asbury Park Press, the Poster, and the Star Ledger on January 2nd, 2015, and posted on the bulletin board the same date. All notices are on file with the city clerk.
First item on your agenda is items for review, the city manager's report. I just have a few short things from the work session of Monday, March 23rd. The first matter was brought up by Councilwoman Clayton. First, from the Quality of Life Committee, taxicab noise has been referred to the police department. And the citywide uniform trash and recycling cans has been referred to public maintenance for requests for prices on both trash and recycling containers. Also from Councilwoman Clayton, CGI Communications regarding a community showcase video program. I just note that there's a consent resolution on Wednesday's regular meeting agenda authorizing the execution of an agreement between the city and CGI. From Councilman Werner, sand on the boardwalk across from Asbury Towers was removed, and public maintenance will make periodic checks when they clean the dog beach to make sure that the sand isn't redeposited there. Your general issues, waiver has been prepared and sent to the state for additional 4 school crossing guards. That's all I have. Your second item on your agenda, special events.
Can I just talk just one thing, and just, Yvonne, I apologize, I've been meaning to call you. As far as the DPW should not go out, in my estimation, for tossing the garbage cans without the tossing the garbage trucks also. And there's a lot of reasons why this works in other towns, doesn't work, may not work in Asbury Park, which I'm sure the committee's looking at. One of the problems is like 3rd, 4th, 2nd, 1st all have 3-line streets, and an overhead garbage truck cannot dump the streets. So, okay, I'm not trying to kill it, but don't waste your time going out to business just over the cans without the trucks, because you need the truck also.
Well, these trucks, they come out the side of the truck and lift it up. It's not coming over the top.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Well, it is the neck thing.
Okay.
But
No problem, no, I said, but
we're
yes.
still researching. We
No.
haven't gone out to bid or anything.
No, I know that, but let's get the price of everything. Okay, thank you. I did wait yesterday, this is not an Easter.
All right. Under letter B, special events and wedding applications. Tom Gilmore's here to present 4 special events and 3 weddings.
Good evening.
No lights on now.
On the agenda, there was a listing for Best Day Foundation. There was some confusion over the dates of the
Can't hear.
Talk to you.
Yeah, you're not on.
Not on?
No.
It's the master volume. Lights on, lights on, lights on. Okay, the first one is the 5th Annual Family Day. This is an event that we've done in the past. It's actually the 5th annual, which will take place at May 30th, basketball courts.
Are there any questions with this one? Okay.
The only thing, Tom, is that are these date savers? Because I didn't notice fees on any of these applications. Are they actually events?
They're events.
Okay.
They should
So
have
am I
fees.
and I could be missing it, but we're
No,
just
I don't see them either, to tell you the truth, so I apologize. I believe the community courts are Board of Ed's property. Is that correct? Yes. So we don't charge them a fee for that. We did talk about having a police officer there, though, so that they would pay for that. Cathedral International Ocean Baptism. This is another event that we do every year. Take place July 26th, which is a Sunday at 1 p.m. The application says that they do it on the 3rd Avenue beach. They actually will be doing it on the 6th Avenue beach. Any event that we do during the season now, if it's during our bathing hours, is on the 6th Avenue beach. Any questions on that? Next one is the Revival 2015, take place July 25th in Sunset Park from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Deputy Mayor Quinn, we charge for the park on this. We'll have police officers there, and there'll be DPW cleanup as far as picking up the cans. But they will have a dumpster there, so they'll do their own trash on it. So it'll probably be about $750 for this event. The last special event is actually a request from the Monmouth Ocean Development Council, which is a large business organization. They do a legislative reception at the end of May. Last year they did a press conference with the Jersey Shore Convention and Visitors Bureau, so they're asking if they can use our boardwalk for a press conference, which will take place approximately at 5 p.m. on May 19th. Actually, it was a very successful event. We had some TV cameras there, and most of the papers were there also. It's sort of a kickoff for this season. Any questions? Okay. We have 3 wedding applications. I just want to make a note on one of them. The last one is scheduled for the skate and surf event weekend, which is probably not the best time to be getting married in Asbury Park. But in any event, the couple was made aware of this, and they still want to move forward with it. So that's it.
Questions?
Thank you.
The next matter on your agenda, under letter C, item is to be presented by Madison Marquette. This is a revised proposal for the food truck board. Carrie Turner.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. My name is Dennis Collins from the firm of Collins Phillips. I have the pleasure of representing Madison Asbury Retail this evening. The greater pleasure is to just turn it off over to Carrie Turner and let you know what has occurred since our last appearance here and what changes have been made to our proposal.
And for the benefit of the public, what we have here and what was provided in our updated submittal.
Can you hear?
No. No? Is this better? Okay. Do you guys have the packets that were submitted up there? Okay.
No.
So I'll withdraw the public's attention to the 2 boards. To my left, what's the board on the bottom was our original proposal that came forward to this body on March 9th. And what is above it is an updated proposal where essentially we are proposing to move the food truck park 3 tax blocks to the north, where it will be between the roundabout at 7th Avenue on the south and
Can everybody hear?
the sewer.
No.
plant.
No.
So I'm wrong.
You know, can I stand up and just
Yes.
and address these
Yes.
maybe? Okay. How about this?
Can you turn this a little bit
And can
too?
you guys see this? The council has
There you
theirs.
go,
Is
yeah.
that better? Okay, absolutely. Our first proposal was to do the food truck park on the green space immediately north of Sunset Pavilion. This updated proposal moves that almost exact same configuration 3 tax blocks north, and it would be between here's the roundabout at 7th Avenue. This is the south corner of the sewer facility. This is also a vacant green space right now. All right, and so
Right now, the new bathroom trailer that was purchased last year is on the southeast corner of this site. That is one change that is different from here. There wasn't a bathroom on the site, but that was a concern. This will now be coordinated with the hours that we're asking for the park.
The bathroom will be, 'cause
Yes,
that's one of my questions.
yes, correct. The bathroom hours will be, and that would be on us. If the city was going to close it at a certain hour, we'll take over the maintenance
I think we do.
for the other hours. I've spoken to beachfront
Okay.
operations about just that. The rest of the configuration, so that what that did is there was a game area and bike racks here. That's getting shifted over, and we have the game areas really here and potentially in another area. You're going to hear a proposal after me from iStar about a temporary parking lot here. So the access to the site would be through this parking lot in here for the trucks. And pedestrian access obviously comes both off the boardwalk and also from this existing sidewalk that's here. The configuration has changed slightly. What we had in the middle here, where we had fence paneling and two trucks, we no longer need that for a pin to be able to hide any trash that was accumulated during the day before pickup, but we still are proposing signage that was roughly, the original proposal was I have to check, I'm sorry, 7-foot fence panel that could be used for signage. That's still proposed, just in a slightly different configuration, as well as 11-foot high poles that had illuminated signage similar to, I'm sorry, this was sort of the vocabulary that we were talking about in terms of what we were looking for. Same setup with picnic tables, string lights, trash receptacles, and the two comments from the TRC were to please center the signage on the site and also to make sure that there was enough room for circulation off the boardwalk, and that this was sort of tight. So those will be addressed as we move forward to planning board. What I put in the narrative that was submitted to city council, and if everybody doesn't know, is that we've agreed to run, electric would be run to the site. There will be access to a hose for water. For cleanliness, it will be staffed with someone who would be, I guess for lack of a better term, bussing to make sure litter, doesn't blow around. And there would be bulk pickup twice a day. Oh, and I'm sorry. The other difference is that the trash enclosure has now moved also to the northwest corner of the site.
Okay, so you're still gonna have a person manning the site in terms of trash?
Yes, and the hours that we had proposed, or that we had agreed to with city council were 11 to 9. We had asked to go to 10. We would ask that you consider, since we moved it, if we could go to 10, just a request.
Okay.
That we ask that you consider.
And no generators?
No generator. And since our last proposal, we did submit some further detail to you guys. I believe in a letter that I sent on the 10th that had some details on the streamlining and the bike path. There are bike paths.
I just had some questions about the wording of the resolution, because, for example, it starts off and says the hours will be, generators should not be permitted. And then when it gets into the garbage plan, it doesn't say, like, a person will be there full time and will be picking up every 2 hours, right?
No, I mean,
Picking up whatever
Twice
it
a day.
is. But,
Okay.
But whatever it is, it's not laid out in the resolution as the other ones are. It just seems to me we know what it's going to be, right? We might as well lay it out in the resolution like we did for the hours, like we did for something else. And then it also says like a plan to address wastewater disposal. I don't really need a plan. I just want to know what we're not going to have wastewater disposal on the site, right? So can we just change that resolution to say trucks will not be disposing of wastewater outside the site instead of saying plan? I don't care for a plan on that one.
If you want to put it in the resolution.
Is that all right?
yes, I mean, my understanding, there's self-contained trash.
Right, yeah.
Outside every
So I
day,
just,
that's-
if we're all in
that's
agreement,
fine.
let's just make sure the resolution says that. So the wastewater plan would just be no wastewater. Not a plan to provide water, they would provide water. And a garbage plan that would include someone manning and bussing the tables, as well as trash pickup twice a day. And then there was some inconsistency with this resolution and the TRC with signage. Right, this says signage should not be permitted, and the TRC just said center the signs. So I don't know how we should address that, or does the plan will address that?
I mean, we would ask that we be allowed to propose signage to the planning board. And it would be centered.
What?
Centered, per their request, we could center it on the site.
comes up with something we don't like, does it come back to us? That's what scares me.
No, do you have specific concerns about the signs that to be proposed?
No, but obviously the planning board and TRC, somebody did, so,
It was just about centering of the sign. The sign was on the
where's your proposed sign?
What we had done,
Was that we have something that's painted on a fence, and we're still proposing to do two fences, one facing the boardwalk, one facing the parking lot that would have some signage on it, and then the other would be that lighting, and so, again,
Do we have like the size?
inspiration, I don't know exactly what the logo would be, but there would be.
How does the size of the sign, are they 4x8s or they're 20x20?
This is, I believe in your packet, what we had was, it was 7 foot, was what the fence, it was a 7-foot board on board. That's what we had proposed, and this was an additional 4 feet in the air, so this would be 11 feet in the air.
So you're looking at a swag light?
Yes. And so that, I mean, we're gonna propose that vocabulary to the plan.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Next item on presentations, item number 2, presentation by Asbury Partners, iStar Financial, proposed interim surface parking lots in the waterfront redevelopment area.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Jay Raskin. I'm an attorney with the Wolf & Sampson Law Firm here on behalf of iStar Financial through Asbury Partners. And as noted, we are here for an application for conceptual approval for 3 temporary interim parking lots, surface parking lots in the waterfront redevelopment area, namely as identified in your agenda for this evening, Block 4307, lots 1 through 3, Block 3904, lot 1, and Block 3103, lot 1. Again, these will be interim or temporary surface parking lots, benefit the tourism of the city, obviously allow people visiting the city, the beachfront, waterfront area to have a place to park. I have 3 witnesses, all of them will be very brief. One to discuss the planning concepts of this. We've got our landscape architect and Mr. Curley, our engineer, will describe, among other things, the stormwater treatment. You'll hear testimony that there will be swales implemented in the 3 parking lots to address stormwater issues. So, without further ado, I will call my first witness, and we do intend to be very brief this evening.
Okay, and again, I think we've seen some of this beforehand, so if you tilt that word to the audience, it'd be appreciated.
And you might want to talk about the, well, I guess you're going to go through the 3 separate lots, right? So
That's correct, yeah. Well, there will be 3 separate surface parking lots. Mr. Houston will speak to them in general terms, but then our subsequent witnesses will address each lot individually. So, Mr. Houston, could you describe how these surface parking lots comply with, and if they comply with the redevelopment plan?
Sure. You'll hear a lot of the details from, in terms of engineering and landscape design from subsequent witnesses, but I was just asked to briefly speak to compliance with the plan. And the waterfront redevelopment plan on page 58 does provide a number of specific standards for parking lots. All of those requirements are met here with respect to landscaping, buffering, lighting, and paving. Just 2 key requirements, one being the landscape buffer of 10 feet around the perimeter of each of these 3 parking lots. You'll see on the plans that is addressed on each lot. And then also a requirement that each of the parking lots achieve a 10% threshold of landscaping. You'll hear from Mr. Bauer, these are very well landscaped lots, each of which exceeds the 10% requirement. In fact, the lot on block 4307 is 45% landscaped. The lot on block 3904 behind the Empress Hotel is 24% landscaped. And the lot on 3103 along Cookman Avenue is 25% landscaped. And I think with that, that's really the summary in terms of compliance. Again, details will be addressed by the other witnesses.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Thank you. Paul Bauer? Sure. Now, if you would, Mr. Bauer, just walk us through the concept plans for the individual parking areas, concentrating on landscaping and design.
I will be glad. And I think I'll start, folks, with the lot, just because you just heard Carrie speak about the food truck area. This is again 7th Avenue and Kingsley and the boardwalk. This is the area right here in light beige that Carrie just spoke about for the food trucks. So the parking lot, she alluded to the fact that we were going to be before you with the parking lot. This is what that would look like. We have a curb cut off of 7th Avenue here where we will access that lot. We will have parking oriented perpendicular to the beachfront, so our pedestrians can exit the car and walk toward the beachfront and toward the food truck area. We have a total of 100 spaces shown here on this parking lot. That lot will be lushly landscaped with beachfront appropriate plant material, a palette of material that will survive the oceanfront condition and the salt in the air. It will certainly be lit properly for safety for the vehicles and the pedestrians. We have a series of swales. You'll see 2 swales throughout the parking lot here, and you'll hear a little bit more about Mr. Curley, but those swales are there to provide area for drainage within that parking lot. We have pedestrian circulation that flows nicely. We have access from 7th Avenue. There's an existing sidewalk, as you are well aware, along 7th Avenue. We'll access you here. And we have an expanded sidewalk along the food truck area. As you may know, there is a 4-foot sidewalk in this location today. We're going to enlarge that area of pedestrian walkway and provide an attractive drop-off area. So if you're arriving to this lot and dropping someone off for the beach, you can do so in this fashion. Stop your car here, let people out, chairs and beach umbrellas and the like, and have convenient access to either the food truck area or the boardwalk or the beach. So it's a very nice lot. I think we also have, I should mention, handicap parking for those in need of such, and everything, of course, is ADA accessible. So I think all in all, it'll be a very attractive lot. Let me jump then. If you have any questions, folks, please ask. We're also showing, I should mention as well, that we are doing the same type of landscaping in the parking lot, that we are also doing it around the food truck area as well. Similar to some of the landscaping that you see that we have already done along some of the green spaces along Ocean Avenue. So I think it'll be very attractive at the end of the day. The second of the 3, this is the lot at the corner of Kingsley and First Avenue. This is the Empress Hotel. The Vive community is across the street in this location. We are showing 93 parking spaces in this location, striped as you see with an access to an existing curb cut on First Avenue in this location. Again, we have 2 swales, 2 depressed swale areas to accept site drainage from the parking lots. Lushly landscaped, well lit, pedestrian circulation in 2 points, one here near the entrance and another at closer toward Kingsley. So you can park in this lot and exit if you want to go dine at Port or walk along Kingsley. ADA accessibility, handicap parking, and as Keenan alluded to, all of these lots exceed the 10% coverage of landscaping. In fact, the one I showed you was about 45%. This one is 24 to 25%. So again, I think it's a very nice solution. Both of which are, all 3 of these actually also have bicycle racks included as well. So we have bike access, pedestrian access, vehicle access, lushly landscaped, well lit. And our third and final one this evening is closer to downtown. This is Grand Avenue and Lake and Cookman. This is the old Board of Ed site, as you would recall. And this L-shaped lot will have 2 access points to it because we have 2 existing curb cuts. There's an entrance and an exit located on Lake. There is an entrance only located on Grand Avenue, adjacent to some of the angled parking stalls. We are showing striped in this location 91 spaces. Again, well lit, well landscaped. In this location, unlike some of the others, we can do more shade trees because we're a little bit further away from the beachfront. So there's less salt in the air and that vegetation will do better. I will tell you also that due to the proximity to the downtown and the greater demand for parking in this area, we have the option, we would like the option of doing this as a valet lot as well, and even increasing the number of spaces. We therefore have located a parking attendant booth in this location just off of Lake Avenue. for air and heat and that kind of thing for the parking lot attendant. So it's possible that given this right situation that we may valet this lot and increase that number of spaces. Again, ADA accessible, pedestrian circulation, all similar to the others. So that's a brief explanation of the 3 lots. Thank you.
Questions?
With that, I call our final witness, Mr. Curley, to walk through some of the engineering details and in particular the stormwater management sites.
Let me get one, please. The same order that we.
Yeah, by the way, as you're setting that up, the order in which Mr. Bauer and now Mr. Curley is discussing these aren't necessarily the order in which the parking lots will be constructed and operational. So the third, for example, the old former Board of Ed site is intended to be the first of the 3 operational parking lots. So don't want you to get the sense in this presentation of the order.
And when's the timeframe?
I think as soon as possible. I think the intent is we're here to get them constructed and operational as soon as possible.
Possibly Memorial Day, right? I think that was we were hoping for.
Yeah, that's the intent, assuming we have all the approvals. As you know, we have to be before the planning board. We believe will be scheduled for that later in this month, and the plan is to get these operational ASAP.
One of the items I just wanted to bring to council's attention is with the overall waterfront redevelopment and the stormwater management system that was designed for the redevelopment, reviewed and permitted through the DEP process, allowed for all of the development lots to be basically completely covered with buildings or impervious surfaces. So the stormwater management that is being constructed currently, the second phase or the third phase that is being constructed, and likewise what was previously installed, phase 1 and 2, it's all been designed to accommodate fully impervious lots throughout the waterfront redevelopment center. In addition to that, part of our approval process when we were proceeding with the approvals from the DEP with our PAPR approval was a requirement to provide water quality. Those water quality units, the last one is going to be installed, actually no, could be 2. There's the next to last one is being installed in this next portion of phase 3, which is located at the intersection of Fifth and Bird. But the point I was trying to get to is there's water quality units sprinkled throughout the waterfront redevelopment zone that accommodate water quality for the entire waterfront redevelopment zone. In addition to that, there was mandates which I'm sure everyone's aware of it. On the stormwater catch basins, the grate holes are smaller to prevent floatables from going into the storm sewer system. So that's also a big help to the water quality within the lakes that the water flows through. So in that vein, what we try to do is minimize the amount of runoff that would come from these parking lots, and we depressed the island areas in this particular lot. And again, this is lot located at the intersection of 7th and Kingsley. Those areas, again, will be depressed, and they'll have crushed stone in them, and that will accept the majority of the stormwater that's generated by the site. And there's 2 existing inlets that are located towards the westerly portion of the 50 stall lot, and that will accept the remaining amount of drainage. Our intention is to keep these parcels pretty much the same elevation as they exist today. There's going to have to be some minor reshaping, but the mission is not to remove material from the site, basically use what's out there. So it's
You described as part of those depressed areas, those will function as swales, that's the intent?
that's correct. And the maximum depth that any water would achieve in a paved area is 4 inches. And that's only in a deluge, in a thunderstorm, pertinent to the soil. And again, the intent is to try and promote groundwater recharge. next lot, which is located at the intersection of Lake and Grand, this currently tips from Cookman towards Lake. So again, what we will do is along Lake Avenue, we will have a depressed area immediately adjacent to the landscaping that will accept the sheet runoff from the parking lot. The idea is not to have, or to minimize the amount of curbs that are being installed in these parking lots. And what that will do is allow for the sheet runoff to go to the depressed areas. And again, promote groundwater recharge. And the last lot, which is located to the west of the Empress Hotel. This lot, again, was utilized as a construction yard for when the Vive was under construction. This lot needs very minimal grading associated with it. And the center islands of the parking field, again, will be pressed as swales. They will be filled in with crushed stone. And likewise, the area immediately adjacent to Kingsley Street will have a depressed area. And again, accepting the rainwater that's generated by the runoff from the parking lot. So, that's pretty much it. Again, we're stuck with the existing grading surrounding lots, and again, trying to promote as much groundwater recharge as possible.
Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Wood?
Just a couple of questions. So one, thank you for putting these accommodations in because it's a concern, and I know that the DEP's capital permit says that, but it's still not a great build out. If you build out, there's still going to be a lot of runoff going into these storm drains. So appreciate that you're doing that. Just on Fifth and Berg, since you started talking about those water quality units, like the storm scepter kind of thing that we were talking about. So I'm just learning about these. So when we put them in, are we putting in for like a bypass channel?
Yes. When there's
Like
high
flow for bypass?
That's correct.
And then I just had questions about the Lake Ave lot. So to the south, is that correct? To the south is where the depression is going to be?
That's correct.
Lake Ave?
That's correct.
And is there anything to accommodate the runoff that's going to come down? Will it be graded so that the runoff will come, for example, the whole stuff that's up towards Cookman? Is there going to be because there's a storm drain right at the corner, two of them right at the corner of Lake and Grand. Is there anything, what's going to happen to that, say, northwestern section runoff?
The whole parking lot, it's not going to grade over the sidewalk. It'll be directed towards the depressed area on the lake.
Everything towards Lake.
That's correct.
And just because you look at, I don't see the elevations here, obviously, so I don't see, it just feels like it's going to, and this is, if this is what it is, it's okay, I just want to be clear. It's going to come down, and is there going to be a grading to the east so that the stuff when it's coming, right, because there's the access point to the street right there.
That's correct. And
So it would kind of go right down there to the storm drain, or is there going to be a grading away from that towards the?
the intent is to sheet flow it to the depressed area. It's not the intent to have it run out the driveway entrance.
So, but the grading is simply going to be to the south.
That's correct.
Okay. Is there anything we could do there? I just feel like a lot of that's going to come down into that, right? If it's all coming down, and then there's the access to the driveway, so right, the curb cut right there. That's prior to the swale, so it's going to suck a little more off to the street, the storm drain.
But I can have it tipped. I can have it tipped both ways. I can tip it from the east to the west, and then have it go down through the south. There's also the
And again, I appreciate the accommodation. Just
possibly what we could do is extend the depressed area, maybe a little bit adjacent to, tip it. Maybe a little bit adjacent. We can accommodate a small depressed area in this area to accepted rainwater from these 8 or 9 salts.
right, and then my bigger concern was all the way to the west.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just that it would come down
Yeah, no,
south.
this will all be tipped towards the storage compressed area.
Okay, cool, great. Yeah, that's my biggest concern. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So just so the public knows, you understand it's not the entire stump lot, right? It's just a portion of it? And that the swells are not something that are currently in the lots, that we're putting in the lots to deal with the stormwater management? Or stormwater runoff, right? So I'm only because we've heard this, we've been in discussions about this for weeks, but I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to ask Mr. Coda to clarify, that design is based on the street grade, I mean, it is, to some extent, it's dependent upon the street grading, all that layout.
Pretty much the entire, all of the lots are, there's very little leeway that I have with being able to grade these only because of the existing improvements that are surrounding the property, which are the curbs and sidewalks that are up the property, which are not being modified.
Be a substantial undertaking to try to change the way that those.
To regrade everything, that's correct. And again, the intent was not to remove material from the park, from the areas. It's to utilize pretty much the existing grade as best we can to just shape it and grade it, and again, try and promote some groundwater recharge through the area.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just had a question, which maybe should have been for the first, the compliance, and this is just because I don't know, and so maybe you can clarify for me. But the interim parking agreement, right, so this will all fall into that same agreement. Does that have a price like associated with it so that it's lower than the city's price or higher than the city's price?
It'll be higher.
Right, so I see that in the description in my binder, but I didn't see that in the resolution.
Well, I think that is a matter for separate process of the city. This is more as a redevelopment conceptual approval. I'm not sure when exactly, hopefully soon, but I think the council will have before it a proposed agreement for operating.
And that's what I don't have. Okay, cool. Okay.
We'll cover a lot of them. How many years,
Okay.
what type of money we get, blah, blah, blah. That's down the road. This is just, let's get it going.
Right, okay, cool, thank you.
And also, again, just so the public knows, I know a number of people emailed about could any of these lots, particularly Lake, be gravel. And according to the waterfront redevelopment plan, they cannot be. There is a requirement that they be paved. So just so everyone knows, we did show that. It would require an amendment to the plan, which would require months. And part of us working with iStar was to provide parking now before Memorial Day, before things get even worse. And I think we've already referenced that parking. So part of our plan was to make sure the swells are going to help with the stormwater management, since we can't do things like gravel, and it has to be paid without doing an amendment, which takes months and months and months. Just an FYI.
Anybody else?
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate your consideration.
The only thing, because the judge told me when I was in court, is more put while you're ahead. When we have the public session, everybody can beat me up. I want to thank iStar. Especially we worked together, they brought these conceptual plans to us and said, here, what do you think about A, B, and C? And we looked at them, and different people, different times, and we have a parking problem. Right now, it's adding close to 300 parking spots. Hopefully, before Memorial Day. If there's no delays in planning, no delays from the city, I definitely feel it before Memorial Day. You're looking at a substantial dollar amount iStar is put into do this. I mean, probably maybe close to $1 million to pave these lots, to put up the lights, to do everything. But I'm just going to ask one thing as far as lot number 1, which may be also used for valet or down the road. Last year when the 13 cars were used for valet, what they did was they couldn't see, so now we have lights, so all the park guys were out there, just hit the panic button, and then beep, 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 all night long, and people down there that live there got driven crazy. So that's something we can work out.
That's an operational issue.
Right, but again, credit is due, I'm gonna give credit. iStar said, hey guys, you got a parking problem, here's what we can do, because again, and it's to their benefit to build all these lots. Right now, there's nothing going to be built. As soon as they have somebody come in and say, hey, we want to build a hotel there, they're going to say, guess what, guys? No more parking here, but we'll hopscotch to another lot. So, iStar, I thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
In your third presentation, I asked Kurt Danielson, project coordinator from Suburban Department Engineers, to give a brief overview of the plan for the Springwood Avenue Park.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Councilman. I guess what my role tonight is to explain our design and the views associated with preparing that design. Part of the Springwood Avenue project also included doing a survey for a few other lots, in addition to updating the velocity for the city. That was separate from the design of the park itself. The park itself consisted of doing the survey, doing the field investigations, the soils testing, which I think was done previously. What also was involved was preparing utility plans, grading and drainage plans, landscaping plans, all the construction details that are associated with the elements that were in the original approved concept.
When you're doing the outline, can you give years that when things took place to the best of your ability? Like that took place in year, what year?
That I can't provide. We were given basically the concept back in, I guess it was the summer of 2014, and the RFP came out to provide professional services for the design, construction, and administration of the park. So that's kind of when I got involved. To be honest with you, prior to working for Suburban, I worked for another local engineering firm for 15 years. So even though I have a lot of experience in park design, construction, this was really my first project with Suburban. So I just kind of want to throw that out there. So as far as the dates go, I don't have any information. So in addition to preparing the grading, drainage, layout plan, landscape design, construction details, specifications, it's quite a substantial undertaking to provide design for this particular park. There's a lot involved, a lot that goes with it. Permitting is another aspect of the design process. We're going to need soil erosion permit. So that's included in the overall cost of designing the park. Bidding of the park is included in our fee as well. So once the design is done, which it is, and it goes out to bid, we answer the questions the contractors might have, prepare any addendums that might be required. We do a recommendation of award, we tally the bids, if there's any inconsistencies within the numbers from bidders, we identify those and make you guys aware of any inconsistencies. Part of our contract is also construction administration. So once the successful bidder is awarded the project, then we would have a pre-construction meeting to go over any issues, identifying the expectations of the contractor, the city, our expectations of that particular contractor, and we give our contractor submit a construction schedule and give an idea of what they're thinking in terms of the overall construction, and then we would administer the construction of the project. And then the final element of our overall fee would be the project closeout in coordination with Monterey County and the grants that the city has been awarded. So that's also part of our overall fee. And then, punch list items is also part of the construction phase. People from the contractor, if there's any issues, items that need to be corrected, we identify those, put in on those that need to correct those, and make sure that gets done.
Excuse me, are you saying there's a possibility that this will not be taken care of this year?
It's very possible.
In a couple of meetings back, we said that this would, park will be finished or be ready for the summer.
Well, it's my understanding that that was the time period that we were striving for. There were certain decisions that were made that we needed to address. I guess a restroom building had come up, originally that was in our design, and we were told to remove it. So we removed it. So that prolonged the process a little bit, getting the plans and specs ready to go out to bid. But if we were, if the city was ready to go to advertise, our proposed construction schedule was basically 120 days, so 4 months. So even though it would be ready for the summer, it could be ready for the fall. It's definitely a possibility.
Question? The question is, how soon can you start the process of doing more?
Is it from a design standpoint?
No, not construction, from shovels in the ground.
If, let's say, the council, the city was ready to go out to bid tomorrow, okay? And the bid period, let's say, would be 3 weeks. So let's say we would award bids at the end of April. We're just throwing these out there. We get the bids back, everything is good. We have no addendums that we need to issue, we don't have to rebid, we get good pricing from all the contractors. If, depending on the contractor in the city, with contracts for construction, we could be shovels in the ground, let's say, a month from end of May, beginning of June. It's somewhat aggressive, but it's definitely doable.
So possible shovels in the ground June 1st, and that's June, July, August, September, and the park should be finished in September?
Sure. That is definitely achievable.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
Kirk.
Kirk. You're the messenger, you're gonna be shot, so.
That's all right. I'm well advised.
This is a total comparison. I'll never make that. I'm gonna say even on suburban set. Because I'm gonna ask you a question, I live down the road with all these conversations. Who took action? Who did this? I mean, what are the policymakers? And we're learning on this third or fourth string. So I'm gonna go back, the contract was awarded June 5th, 2014, and too late for me to correct the minutes. The minute says I abstained on, I voted no. And it's been passed 3-2. But your contract said the survey was 120 days, which should be approximately November 1st, design 90 days, October 1st, building 105 days, October 15th, construction 240 days. 243 days, it would have been done March 1st, 2009. I mean, it would have been done. Right now, we're at 280 days, and we see nothing. We just found out somebody changed the plan. Who, okay, you're Suburban, have you been the lead person for Suburban on this project?
I've been the lead designer.
Lead designer. Who has Suburban been in contact with on the city's end as far as all these changes that we, the policymakers, do nothing about?
Joe Perillo, who is a principal at Suburban, he's been in contact with the previous city engineer. I've been involved in those conversations.
Who's the previous city engineer?
Joe Kuna.
He's still the city engineer. Okay. So Mr. Kuna knew all this, and who else knew all this?
I believe the prior the city manager was also involved in those conversations.
Okay. Again, we're talking about, as we've honored with everybody here, we want to do this park as quick as possible, but we have any drawings tonight, but this park looks like, just because, why build like $1.5 million park and there's no toilet facilities? I mean, so whoever took that out should be fired. Oh, they already were. Okay, so, you know, this is getting, I think we have to go back to like involved.
They were survey projects.
Survey, yeah, but we voted for Springwood Avenue Park. We didn't vote for Kennedy Park. We didn't vote for wherever the other park was. I don't even know where it is to this day. I know, okay, overlook Kennedy Park. So this is just terrible. Do you have any, like, emails, timeframes, anything? Can you produce us, tonight, tomorrow, the next day, some emails as far as all your correspondence to Mr. Kuhn and Mr. Kelly about how this happened? And then, I think from here out, I think we have to reassess, go forward as soon as possible. We still don't have our financing in place, so this is not like, you know, a drop dead issue, because like, we have the money there, because Ricky Garza doesn't have the finance in place.
How much are we short?
We don't know what we were, because we don't know what they prepared, because nobody's ever seen it.
Can we get, like, on this timeline where 300 days, essentially we're like 280 or 300, we should be at closeout.
Right.
Where are we on this timeline? Are we at design? Are we at bid?
We're bidding.
We're bid. So then, where's the design? Like, this little sketch in my packet is design?
The designs are in plans. All the plans and specs have been delivered to the city.
I have a copy in my office.
Okay, we should see that.
In all due respect, each of your questions, all right, I have a series of email, all right, strings, all right, that I can prepare, all right, for each of the council members. All right, so I do have that information at this point. All right, as far as what we're short right now, all right, is going to depend on, all right, the planning, all right, for bathroom facilities.
Give me a ballpark on what we're short.
But how do we know what we're short? Because
A ballpark. Hundreds of thousands of
No,
dollars.
just because.
Like $50.
No, hundreds of thousands, but there is alternates in this project, right? So we don't know what we're short until we go out to bid and what the alternates come into. So we don't have a clue what we're short.
Do we want to bid for bathroom?
Absolutely. I mean, we never said take out the bathroom when we found out. We all wanted to like, you know what I'm saying?
When we originally designed the park, all those add-on items were in the base design. And then we did a cost estimate to see where we were dollar-wise. We were running over budget. So we decided to take some items not out, but put them as add alternates, depending on when we get back, if we got a favorable bid, then we could award whatever item the city wanted to order or award in that particular order. Some of the items were perimeter fencing around the entire park, which was on the approved concept plan. We took that out, put that as an add alternate. We put the landscaping that was associated with that fencing, perimeter fencing, as an add alternate. The shade structure over the stage was an add alternate.
That was taken out.
Digital message board, because there was a sign.
Seems like everything was taken out, nothing was there.
It wasn't that was taken out, it was just as an add alternate, depending on how the bids came back. And
Okay. Okay.
we'll award that.
Okay.
We had two designs for the water feature. Depending on, again, how the bids came in, we would award one or the other. One was
recyclable, the other was not.
one was a recirculating system and one was a water waste system. So those are the items that were included as add-ons, like I said, depending on how the bids came in for the water, not award. So.
Can I just go through your, what you've been on, ask you a couple questions? And again, sir, the consultant shall meet with the city up to 3 times as the design plans and specifications are being developed. When did you meet with the 3 times? So not looking for that today, that's one of the emails. The city of Asbury Park reserves the right to reject any or proposal or to waive immaterial formalities. I don't know that ever happened. This is, no, none of this. Is it going to be grass or is it going to be artificial turf?
It's going to be natural grass. Synthetic turf was way too expensive.
So that was, but it was originally, which I'm not saying is right, but while the plan shall provide for an artificial turf on installation, it could be changed. So somebody changed that again without telling us. Locate a combination restroom storage facility building within the complex to be designed as an alternate bid. Again, alternate bid, like that's been eliminated. This is where it's on Site 2, Kennedy Overlook Park. Site 3, Corner Lot, Springwood, and Memorial. Why this project is paying for 2 other projects? How this was fund it. It's like, I don't know if it's legal. We're taking,
Do those have to do with the Rossi?
yeah, why is this money coming out of the county grant for a park? I have no idea.
The reason why that was coming out, with the Ross from the county, was because we were swapping the properties, Baker Streets over with, the Springwood Park.
Okay, so there was three
Springwood
projects.
and Memorial, I'm not quite sure as to why.
There's three projects. Springwood Avenue, which we all knew was number one, and we're nowhere there. Project 2 and Project 3, are they complete? Are they still out there, nowhere done either?
They are 95% complete. We're waiting on some tax lot numbers that have been changed.
Well, okay, well, who held up those? Because that I can't even blame on, if your closeout date was 5 days ago, I can't blame that on anybody in the city, because they were two projects that had nothing to do with this one. So why aren't those two done?
We're waiting on information from the city to get those. I asked Joe Kuna to provide that information.
Okay, here's the proposed timetable and schedule. Playground installation was completed, ribbon cutting was May 15th. We're not even going to be out to bid until June or July. So this house, somehow it's got to get burnt in. I'm sorry to shoot but I think what we need to jump some type of committee on this right away, straighten out this mess, because instead of getting better, it's getting worse. And right now, he came before us and said, here's the design. How in our right mind would we vote on the design we never, why would we go out to bid at this point? A month ago, we were ticked off. Mr. Kuna said we were going out to bid February 12th. We were ticked off we didn't go out to bid. Right now, I'm happy we didn't go out to bid because we didn't know what the heck we were bidding on.
Like I said, I know the plan specs are in the finance. I was under the impression you guys had seen the concept plan.
Which rightfully so, you should be under that impression.
So
I have no problem with that.
basically, the concept plan, the prepared construction drawings are a engineered version of that concept plan. There's very little that has changed from that concept plan. Subtle shifts here and there, or state sidewalks, that kind of thing, but the plans and specs that are in the finance are virtually identical to that concept plan.
So this has been going on since 2009, give or take, so I think you're seeing some frustration, obviously, that doesn't have to do with you, but that, entire blocks have been built in Asbury Park, the entire state building was built in less time than it was to get this park off the ground. So I think that's a little bit of the frustration you're getting on this project.
I completely understand, and myself, I would like to have seen it, obviously, under construction 2 months ago.
I'm going to be living with Bill in the towers by the time this park is done.
The only thing I can say is that even though there's a lot of frustration amongst you guys, that once it ultimately is constructed, it will be a major asset to the city.
So the
I
first
walk
step
with
is
that.
to get the design, right? So Tony, the first step would be to get all of us the design. I'm not against forming a committee, I'm fine with it. I just think that's going to like another 6 to 9 months.
I'm open for any discussion how we move this forward as quick as possible. So the heck with the committee, I'll have a special meeting and give the design to all of us and give it to
Yeah, and
public.
we'll put it up on the website and we'll give people a period of time to comment, as many people as possible, or mail it, or do whatever. As opposed to a committee, listen, I'm not going to fight anyone on a committee. You want to
What happened to Springwood Avenue? Tony, what happened to Springwood Avenue?
Well, the Springwood Avenue Committee, that dissolved a few years ago.
When will you have a new design ready with bathrooms?
Depending on what the governing body chooses to put in the restroom building, that could be a couple weeks. I think we need to have a conversation as to what your expectations are for the restroom building. Originally, it was gonna be one stall, men, one stall, women's with a pipe chase in the middle. As the design has evolved, we have irrigation controllers that we originally were gonna put in the building, and then we've taken them out once we were told to remove the building, so they are in what they're called as hot boxes. Backflow preventer, a lot of other utilities that would have been placed in that building were taken out. So if the government decides to put them back in, then we would need to talk to the manufacturer of the building. The building originally was going to be a prefabricated building. We'd have to expand that room, and so there's some decisions that need to be made.
So you already have placement of where the bathrooms are gonna go. Can they go back in that same spot?
They can go back in the same spot. We would need to revise some of the drawings because obviously when you're adding a new building, we need to change the grading plan to some degree because the grade are going to change. In that area, it was a little steeper, so we need to flatten it out, which might necessitate some possible retaining walls, modular blocks, small walls. Once I get into it, I'm going to have to kind of take a look. But in addition to those minor changes, it's not a heavy lift per se. It's a domino effect because once those changes are made on the 3-4 sheets, we have another detail sheet, check the specs are going to have to change, we need to have a spec for the building.
All right, so are we saying we can possibly do this in 2 weeks?
I'm going to say 2-3 weeks, tentatively, depending on when I get the decisions made.
I'm just trying to figure out a timeline. So 2 to 3 weeks to do the design.
Oh, we have to see this. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have to do the design.
But also, now that I have the plans, all right, I had made an appointment to meet with Christy Ballard today too, but unfortunately she had a family emergency. So I'd like to go with T&L, the engineering firm, all right, to have them look at it as well.
Don't start spending money we don't have.
Chrissy and I know
We're
each
short of
other.
money already, so.
I used to work at TAN. I worked at TAN for 15 years. So Chris and I I know Chrissy very well. So most of the parks that TAN has done over the last 12 to 15 years have been my parks. And, so we have a pretty good working relationship. So if you have any
That's
questions,
what I don't understand. Okay. June of 2014, Mayor and Council votes yes on the plan, and the plan had bathrooms. So you guys had to design the plans for the bathrooms. So why do we have to redesign it? Let's go back to the ones you threw away. You have to keep them somewhere.
we weren't complete with the design of that, so we were going to take them out. So we never
So
finished.
that, in your tracking down the emails, you let us know what date somebody said to take out the bathrooms, please.
And then are there other pieces that we need, because I don't want to.
Yeah, what else was taken out?
Or like, what else do we need to decide on, so we don't have to like, look at a plan, and then you redesign, and then we say, let's redesign again, and we're like, 3 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 weeks, with, are there big pieces besides the bathroom that we need to decide on?
It's just the bathroom. I mean,
That's
like
it.
I said, everything that was in that concept plan is virtually in the final design.
There was no other things that you said that were pulled out and put as add-ons?
That was only due to budget reasons that we put in as add alternates. They are shown on the concept,
They're still in there.
and they're still in there, they're just in as an add alternate or
Okay.
supplemental item, I think, for the construction drawings. So,
Okay, so you basically, you've heard our frustration, you do this as a living, so you know we want to do this ASAP, so anything you can help us guide us with is like, you guys are like, you know, I want to help you out with this predicament, so anything you can help us with, deeply appreciated. As far as saying like, what do you think we should do next?
personally,
Yes.
I think, one thing we could do, and depending on the 20%, is we could go at the bid, and depending on what everybody wants to do in terms of the bathroom size, we could go as a change order. That's 20% of the overall construction bid. So that doesn't allow you to, it kind of handcuffs you a little bit more if you want to make changes during construction. If you want to add this, you want to add, you know, whatever the case may be. So you're kind of hamstrung a little bit. I think it might be beneficial to, you guys have waited this long, and believe me, I understand your frustration. And like I said, I get frustrated too, because I do this for a living, like you said, I take it personally, and I like to see things move swiftly. But it's probably beneficial to to wait the 2 to 3 weeks to make the decisions and do it right the first time than have to kind of, you know.
It goes back to what Joe said, like what else is out there that may, so we don't do 2 to 3 weeks here, 2 to 3 weeks there. So now you know comprehensive, like, this is all what they want and everything, but we don't know what we have until we see these plans that are financed.
Right, so should we look at the plans quickly?
Yes.
Get to you, if it's just bathrooms, it's just bathrooms, and then you.
And the plans have been over there since the end of February, so they've been there a while. If that helps, or I'm not sure that.
We'll just pick it to scale, you know?
So, you know, if you have any questions, concerns, you know, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to do whatever I can to, you know, push it along.
So again, thank you, and I think you get beat up a little bit. Please don't see the first discount. I wasn't getting beat up, we're nice. But, so you know where we want to go. You'll be in touch with Tony as far as how to pull it off the quickest way. I agree with Amy. Timothy's, I mean, if we have to have a special meeting, I gotta have a special meeting.
I gotta be honest with you, I mean, the plans and specs, everything is an engineered, finalized, and like I said, it is dead on with that concept plan.
Okay, and I don't think the 2 to 3 weeks is a killer at this point in time, because I don't believe Ricky Parks has the funding in place at this time either. So it's not like we're already delayed, so 2 to 3 more weeks, it's not gonna like kill it, it's just like we're dead, so you can't kill us twice. But, you know, adding 2 to 3 weeks to the financing is why not.
So as long as we'll get the bathrooms figured out, get the design.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are okay with one stall per, you know, one stall for men's, one stall for women's.
Give us options, because I don't see that, I mean, we would look at like maybe down the road, put the jazz festival there or something like that. I mean, you have a nice walking track, you have a nice gazebo, you have a nice place for people to come, and then no bathroom facilities, and we're gonna put porta johns there, and a little tacky, so.
I don't disagree with any of that.
Okay.
So, you know, depending on the size of the building, could encroach in space that is in the upper right-hand corner, if you're looking at it, aerial. There's an existing cabinet, electrical cabinet that's there now. So depending if you wanted to do multi-stalls for men, women, and that building expands, that could become a little problematic. So we got to kind of balance, you know, stalls with the space that's available and budget. The bigger the building, the more money you're going to want to have in the, you know, put towards it. So those are all elements kind of want to take into consideration.
So Tony, I say well, I don't say it every, but I say it a lot about the CDBG money. So there is an item, there is, I would say, well over $100,000. Not that that's going to be huge in the spectrum of a part of over $1 million, but there is absolutely CDBG money that has been sectioned off for the Springwood Ave Park that I think is well over $200,000. So when you're calculating this balance sheet, can you just check with Cassandra exactly how much? Because over the years, we've continuously put money towards Springwood Ave Park.
Plus, there's other monies that have been raised that we'll talk about later. Maybe another $150,000 that might be available for this.
And this is available like today for it. It's been sitting for years in the CDBG.
And the 3 years of $250,000 from the county, it's sitting there for
Right.
years, so.
Well, I know, but I assume you're calculating that, and I don't know if you're calculating
But
the
keep in
funds
mind-
from the CDBG.
Keep in mind that the money comes from the county's reimbursement. It's reimbursable grant.
Right, you pay it and then they reimburse us, right. The CDBG money is not, it is literally sitting there.
Any other questions? Thank you. The next matter on your agenda is Gail Helford. All right, getting to resilience community survey tool.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. I was asked to come here today to just explain to you a proposal that Brownfield Redevelopment Solutions, which is a company that I work for. We met with Don Simon probably in February of this year. He had wanted to meet with us and talk to us about what are the types of services that we provide that we might be able to support him. During that conversation, the Getting to Resilience Community Survey tool came up, and he had expressed some interest in that. And we made a decision as a company to make an offer to facilitate the completion of that tool for the city on a pro bono basis at no cost to the city. The tool is a tool that evaluates the emergency response preparedness for the city community outreach and looks at the flood management plans that they have. It's an interactive online tool that's connected to certain flood mapping tools as well. And then what that does is it takes and assimilates the data that is collected and provides recommendations for the city about increasing its resiliency and flood management program. The tool was originally provided by the DEP and it was later adopted by the Jacques Cousteau National Estuarine Research Facility. And the tool would be completed with them as well. The importance of the tool is it would be interactive. It would bring people from the city that are in positions that understand and know the tools and the programs that are here. We would work with the Jacques Cousteau individuals. We would also, there's an Asbury Park has a resiliency task force. We would invite them to participate in the completion of this tool as well. What we would do is we would have one and a half hour meetings with representatives from the city. We would then be responsible for any of the data gaps. We would do the legwork and get the data from the city, input that into the tool, and then provide you with a written report. The advantages of the program and completing the survey, there's a few of them. One of the first things is it provides and allows the city to get credits with the Sustainable Jersey program, which we're members of. And also, if the city chooses to apply for the community rating system, that's part of the FEMA National Fire Insurance Program. The advantage to that is for the residents here in the city and also for the city is if you have certain classification, there are discounts to the insurance premiums for the residents. And as the city adopts more and more of the tools and programs that might be the recommendations from the survey, the community rating system of the city increases, and then the discount that's provided to the residents for their flood insurance plan then goes up. So the discounts can go anywhere between 5 and 45% of their current premiums. I looked on the internet. I saw, obviously, Asbury Park does comply with the National Flood Insurance Program. I did not see anything on the internet that we were part of or applied for the community rating system, which would be something that I would recommend. And the tool would allow you to use that data to start applying for that. Typically, cities, they start out, the ranking system is 1 to 10, 1 being the highest, 10 being the lowest. If you're rated a 10, you don't get a discount. Typically, communities start with a rating of about 8 to 9, and then they work their way up. The other thing, the benefit of the tool as well is that the recommendations can be used to be built in and written into Asbury's master plan that I understand will either be rewritten or adopted and revisited shortly. So it would help you then build some resiliency back into to the city. So as I mentioned, DRS is offering to do this on a pro bono basis for the city. We'll bring it from the initiation to the completion, and we'll provide you with that report, and we'll review that report with you when it's done. I hope that's easier than the last guy that's up here.
Hey, Kurt.
I hope you got it all out of your system.
You go home if you want to. We're done with you.
I certainly want to thank, I just wanted to thank, so if anyone has questions, I just want to thank you, Gail, for you and your company, and you volunteer a tremendous amount in Asbury Park. This is just another example of that, and it is greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So the next step, what I'll do is I'll work with Tony, I'll send some dates out, and then I'll need to get some names of individuals that I think would be appropriate to
discussion, Barbara Van Wagner, zoning officer, is here, all right, for two matters, both reviews of planning board recommendations. All right, one for, to amend our redevelopment plan, all right, proposed application for procedure for escrow establishment, all right, and amendment to the land development regulations for arcades.
Good evening. I'm just here to answer any questions you might have about the two recommendations from the planning board. One is the amendment to put into effect a procedure for having a plan. It's for the developers to pay escrow and application fees when they ask for a plan amendment. What's been happening in the past is applicants have been coming before the board, and the city's been paying for the professionals to review these applications for plan amendments, and what the board recommended is that a fee be set up, both an application fee and an escrow fee.
In theory, I have no problem with it. There's a couple of side problems for the union negotiation areas I talked to Mr. Nuccio about, so we'll be discussing them either personnel before the council meeting.
This has to do with the plan
Well,
amendment.
that could be your interpretation, I have other people's interpretation, okay. And believe me, this is the council that said, let's have people start paying their fair share, so we're all for this. And we think it's going to go through, there's just a couple of things we have to work out with the union. And I'm not going to talk about negotiations now in public, so next.
It's just a fee.
And I talked to George about this 3 times today, so I'm kind of surprised we were talking about it now. So, Barbara, what do you have?
Well, I'm just here to answer any questions, but the second one is regarding the arcades.
I didn't understand, I've never heard the word arcade so much, except for recently. Why is that, is there something going on with arcades that I feel like Don was in front of us with it. I'm just saying, what's the history of this arcade?
It's the same question, why was it, this was the same issue, but why was it, so this is back from the planning board?
Because it had to, because it came to us, Don brought it to us.
But who brought it up? Who brought it to?
Yeah, a developer trying to do arcades.
Developer, yes, it was an application before the planning board. In order to allow for more than 3 arcade machines, you would need to get a plan amendment.
Who wants to do more than 3 arcades?
Johnny Mack, across the street.
And many other people.
Well, I don't know of any others, but that's the one that appeared before.
How about the pinball museum that has 5 little kiddie rides out front of the store? They're coin-operated machines.
Well, that's permitted in the waterfront. We're talking about the central business district that doesn't permit it.
Okay.
So in order to amend this plan, to allow for it, what the board was recommending is that you change it and allow for more than 3 and just leave it as a square footage. So in circumstances where the new hotel is coming in or existing hotels, if they want to have an arcade room, at this point, they would need a plan amendment. So what they're recommending is that you allow for more than 3, but limit the square footage.
Which I'm in total agreement with that. The second part, which I'm in total disagreement about, where you're saying anybody that has anything outside has to build an enclosure around that. And that would be, okay, if it wasn't on the waterfront redevelopment plan, if there was some nice little store on Coconut Avenue or
Well,
something.
before we even get to that, can I just go back to the inside arcades for
Sure.
a minute? What was the logic behind having the limit of 2 or 3? Just so I know.
It sounds 25%.
No. You're talking about the original?
Right, no. Prior to this, there was a logic in limiting the number of coin-operated machines, right?
Yeah, 3 is pretty much the standard in most towns. I mean,
But what was the reason behind
I
it?
think Don had said it was like, they didn't want your front of your restaurant turned into an arcade.
No, she's asking what the number, the 3.
But that's
Yeah,
why,
it's
they
an
didn't want
arbitrary number.
12 in the front of your restaurant, right?
Well, right now you can't have any in the front. We're talking about limiting, right now the ordinance limits your number of, as the ordinance reads, coin operated, which we also need to change because most are not operated by coins. So what we just refer to them as arcade machines now. 3 is just an arbitrary number that most towns have just adopted, that exceeding 3 defines you as an arcade,
But wasn't that
which
the-
changes the use.
I guess your point is like, what was
Yeah,
the
was there a
reason for
reason
that?
for it
Right.
that I should be taking into consideration before I say yes or no to it?
Well, they didn't want restaurants and places changing their use from a restaurant to an arcade, so they set the limit as 3. Why it was 3, not 4, I don't know. It's been in place for quite a while. It's enough 3.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what 4,
And I
you
think
know what I'm saying? I don't know.
I like the planning board's suggestion at 25%.
They were hitting it back and forth. The only thing I'd like to change, and I know it's written here on page 2, if you have a copy of it, in section B, you have it in front of you. The resolution actually reads, the board recommends that the area outside of structures such as a patio area or outside drinking or dining area, and in parentheses, public space, be proposed to be used for arcade games, be enclosed in a permanent structure which contains 4 walls and a roof in order to control the volume of noise emanating from the area. The board also recommends a maximum 25% of public area be used for said games. What I recommend on the second line where it says public space, I recommend you take public space out and actually change it and limit it to the side and rear yard area and exclude public property. As it reads now,
That's fine.
as it reads now, as Mr. Kaplan was saying, it almost seems like you can leave them, put them on your front sidewalk area, which I don't think that was the intent of the planning board.
Is it public area or public property? I think they're,
It's how you interpret public space. People see public right away, you think of the right of way, public right of way. Public space is where the public congregates, I think is the intention here. The public who are using the particular.
the lobby of a
Yeah,
restaurant.
but it's the language that if challenged, or if somebody does something, Barbara seeks to enforce this, she may have some trouble.
I think if somebody puts these machines on their front sidewalk area and places where their tables are, and I write a summons, I may lose in court, and you're gonna end up with arcade machines all over the sidewalks. And if you decide you want to have them have permanent structures, that would.
Yeah, I would be with John on permanent structures. And that was Don's recommendation here, was to let the noise ordinance handle not have somebody build a permanent structure around the front of it. It seems to me like if you have I don't know the situation, but if you have outside dining and you have something out there, you have to build a permanent structure around it just because you put it in. I mean, who would do that? I don't know who we build. Would put a permanent structure around the outside dining for a video game or something. But
But it would have to be on their private property. I just want to make sure that
yeah, I agree 100%.
that's specified in here, or you're going to have people putting them outside in the front.
So I think with your dining and you have games right next to you, it's going to be interfering with the evening and the quality of the evening. And we already have one person putting up in an outside dining area. So I think we need to consider it.
But this is for outside.
Outside.
She said when you're dining outside.
Well, then go in.
Or isn't that if the proprietor of the restaurant can't figure that out, then.
7 months out of 12, you're going to be inside. Or no, 5 months out. Again, okay, I didn't know there was a difference between the waterfront. So the waterfront is different than the rest of the town, where they can have.
The pinball machine place is a permitted use there. When he was originally on Cookman Avenue, he needed to go before the board.
I just use it for example. He doesn't have any pinball machines outside, but he puts these
Well,
little.
it's coin operated. That's why you need to really eliminate the words.
We did
coin
here,
operated.
we don't know how,
Arcade.
we did here. Amy brought that up and said nobody uses coin anymore. I think
Right.
that got to you guys.
Right.
Okay,
It's not just the pinball, though. My recollection of the WRA, and I know this because the ladies from North Beach keep me on my toes, is there are absolutely, like Madison can do certain amusements in the green space, from my reading of their lease. Like there's a number of places in the waterfront that allow for amusements. I'm saying amusements, I don't know, is there a difference between amusements and arcades?
I more in line of, I think when people think of amusements, you think of them as rides and activities, as opposed to an arcade, which just really limits it to the
Okay,
machine
so
game. Yeah, it's a game of chance, or I don't know what other word you can.
I'm John Moore Circus that comes to the town, sets up for 3 weeks on Springwood Avenue. All my games are outside. They got to build up walls around. No, because it's temporary, so I mean.
Well,
so
if you do that in the street, you're coming in here under a special events permit. You're talking about permanent.
So again, it's like the people that were against the food court saying that the restaurants make the money because these guys are just here, so we'll let the parties make the money, but the guy who wants to have like an outside pinball machine or something and paying his taxes and paying all his fees or anything, can't do it, but the outsiders can come in and do it. Just seems like so inconsistent. And again, it is, and Don makes a perfect thing. It's already covered by the nuisance code.
You're talking about the enclosure.
The enclosure of any exterior arcade games is a way to help mitigate the noise. In my opinion, this is from God's side, noise concerns can be addressed through other police powers. So to tell somebody like, hey look, you want to put like one basketball game here, you got now it's got to be an inside basketball game. So I mean, they got to build Madison Square Garden for a basketball game for like people got inside and shoot hoops. And if it's noisy, I mean, if I was noisy and I was sitting there, I would either move inside or I would know. I mean, I'm not blind, I would see it before I sat down. Or I'd go to a different restaurant.
And that's what I'm saying. It's your choice whether you want to have it enclosed or not. I'm only recommending that you take that portion out that says public space and limit it to side and rear yard areas and exclude public property.
I'm fine with that too, but does that mean it has to go back? This is not our recommendation, this is planning board. Does it mean it has to go back to the planning board, or we can just do it? Okay.
No, these are recommendations from the planning board
Okay.
to council, and you can either adopt it or change it, or,
And then legally we have to say why we changed.
That's correct.
Correct.
You have to put in your minutes the reasons why you're deviating in any way from the planning board recommendation.
Because we don't run on public property. I mean, I think that's what it should be.
I think,
You have
So
reasonable
how did you
explanation,
want
just have to put it in there.
I just recommend, I think the intent of the planning board, and I just wanted to have this more specific when it came to the council, the intent was just to have it in open areas on the exterior of the property, but not on public property.
Okay.
So you want to be very specific and just limit this also to side and rear yard areas. There are properties in town that have a small area in the front of their property that they own that's not right of way. Not very many in public, in
Like, give me an
business
example.
areas. There's certain properties on Asbury Avenue that may own 10 feet out from their property line. So if you limit it to your personal property, Memorial Drive, some of those properties have property that doesn't, the right of way does not go up to their front door. Most of Cookman Avenue, the right of way goes right up to their door, so it's not an issue. But there's certain business areas where they'll own a certain portion of their own property. What you want to do is limit where these are allowed. You don't want to just say on any public property, on any private property, or else they're going to be putting pinball machines in the front of their businesses.
Yeah, I'm with you on the front of their business.
Right.
I don't feel passionate one way, and not putting them in the front of businesses. I'm with you, not putting them in the front of businesses.
You're scared of on.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I'm not particularly
Well,
passionate about
okay,
cover.
say just across the street. What's Dino's? What's the front of his business? Is it on Main or is it on?
No, it's right up to the front. The city right of way is right up to their door.
No. What's the front? What's his front? And what's the side of his business?
Well, he has two fronts. When you're on a corner lot, you have two fronts.
So he has two fronts. So he
Well,
could,
he doesn't have any private property, so this really wouldn't apply to him.
except okay, this is not mixing apples and oranges. Except we give him an outside permit where you can put tables out there sticking out 10 feet, but we can't put a machine out there sticking out 4 feet.
In front of a shop, you want arcades in
I'm not saying. I don't know. It depends what type of arcade it is. Say it's like one of those old booths that you took your pictures in.
Put it on the sign.
Some businesses don't have signs.
Well, also, you would, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you would have to change the other ordinance for cafes. The ordinance for cafes specifically limits what you put out in front based on what you sell. So the only people that are allowed tables and chairs are restaurants and places that serve food. and it's only an extension of what you sell inside. If you're a shoe store, you can only sell shoes outside. If you're a food establishment, you're the only ones that can have tables and chairs outside. So we've had people come out here and say, can I sell clothes alongside my tables? But you don't sell clothes inside. So your cafe license is really an extension of what you have in your store. If you have an arcade outside, isn't an extension of what you have inside, you'd have to change that. You'd have to amend that ordinance to allow people to have
I
arcades.
told you I was mixing apples and
Okay.
oranges, so I apologize.
So just so we're clear, and who thought this required as much discussion, but using Johnny Mac's slates, since obviously you're telling me he's the person who wants this, I don't want arcades where his tables are, but I don't have a problem with them on the side lot that he has that used to be a parking lot. Is that, are you considering that side? I just don't want them like at the front door.
Right, that's why I think the language has to be more specific. The intent of the board was to have it in an open area, not on public property. Johnny Mac owns that lot, so that would be the side of his property.
Right, okay.
And it would be private property.
Private property that's not the frontage. Is that right?
Correct. So what I'm suggesting that you replace the word public space with limited to side and rear yard and excluding public property.
And the planning board doesn't want it in the front and doesn't mind it on the side, they just want to cut it. Just so I'm understanding what the planning board said.
That was, yeah, that was
Okay.
what he said.
And if it's the board's intent not to have it enclosed, it was just merely a suggestion by the planning board. Obviously, the council can
But you
amend
guys
this
were
in any way.
passionate about not having it in the front. I assume that was your passion. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'll go with the planning board's passion issue. Because I agree.
No,
I wouldn't, but.
It should be enclosed. I have no problem saying, number one, nothing should be open. City property, public property. So, I mean, that's a no-brainer. But as far as what's outside of the property, I don't see like, we're gonna ask them to build Boston Gardens, not a basketball. And that's what you're asking them to do, enclose it so it's not outside anymore, now it's inside. So-
Well, we have 2 days to think about it, right? The vote's Wednesday.
No, there's no.
Oh, there's no vote.
No, this is just items for information,
Just
which we're going to
information
tell the
items.
city attorney to propose an ordinance for the next meeting.
2 weeks from.
2 weeks from now.
Right.
And also keep in mind, whatever the size of the structure is, it depends on the number of machines. So the larger the lot, they allow 25% of the area to be covered, if you go along with their suggestion. Also, 500 square feet or more is actually going to prompt a site plan. So if they build a structure and it's 500 square feet, they're going to be required to get a minor site plan if it's 1,000 square feet. Depends how big these things are. I mean, if you have a big parcel, and they,
Well, then they got
somebody
to
build
build
a
a
structure to cover, I mean, would the structure just kill the idea of having games, right? I think it would, Johnny Mac's not gonna close his games, I would imagine.
well, he doesn't want to. That's why he put them out there to start with.
Are there games out there now?
There are games out there now, and he exceeded the number, and I'm in court with him because of that. He has 3 machines inside and he had 3 machines outside. He removed 2 of the exterior ones, he still has the 1 on the outside. So he's still in violation.
I've never heard the worst arcades this much in the last month.
I mean, back when the city was nothing, I mean, I was stupid enough to have 2 restaurants on the boardwalk, and I had a restaurant, and I had 15 pinball machines inside, and I paid $25 a year for it, not license for them, and nobody said boo about it. And I would have a little car and a little wagon for the kids to ride on, and I've never got my back busted, and never was told, like, don't let it close, man. And I've never, I don't know, any time in America, I mean, what other than beachfront towns has built an enclosement around, like, outside games? I've never heard it in my life.
This isn't inclusive of the beachfront.
I know, it's not, that's okay, but we are a shore community.
I mean, they limit it in the central business district. It's limited in all the business areas because they didn't want an excessive number of machines in restaurants. I mean, 3 was the magic number. The prior council, 1987 and before, because this has been in effect for quite a number of years. So, I mean, this ordinance has been around for quite a number of years.
I think it makes sense. The thinking behind it, you don't want your restaurant to turn into arcade.
Were restaurants turning, I mean, I just don't even know where that's coming from. In the 80s, were restaurants turning into arcades?
No, to be honest with you, it's never been a problem. The only time this ever came up was Johnny Mac. I mean, this has really never been an issue. I think the pinball place on the waterfront was the first one on Cookman Avenue, and they came in telling the board, they came in as an interpretation, telling them that they were not an arcade and they were in fact a museum. And the zoning board at the time bought it.
Don't laugh, the city just jumping up and bought that.
No, wait, you know,
The guy doesn't pay his worker
I'm embarrassed to say the zoning board actually bought that. Until he actually opened up and they realized they made a mistake and it was, oh my God, an arcade. The funny thing is he kept going along saying hi on museum, then he decided to get a bigger space on the boardwalk and called himself an arcade. So, you know, he was always an arcade. He just called himself a museum when he was on Cook. Johnny Mac is not calling himself a museum, he's calling himself
I don't feel, I have to be honest, I don't feel other than I don't want them on public property and I don't want them in front of stores. That is the only thing I feel about.
Anything else for Barbara? The third item for discussion, appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. Anyone have any? Boards, committees, and commissions.
No.
Anyone? All right, letter E, review of agenda items for April 8th, our 2015 regular meeting. Anybody have any questions?
I have something,
I do.
somebody go ahead.
Well, I gotta dig mine out. I actually was gonna call you about these instead, Tony. A quick question about the Monmouth Mosquito Control Division, aerial mosquito. When they say aerial mosquito control, like they're going to spray pesticides, right, all over Asbury, like what area are they doing this?
No, primarily around the lake areas.
It's if needed.
If needed.
And they give some sort of warning to
Yes.
people that they're gonna do
Yes,
this.
and they sold their helicopter 2 years ago, so they can't even do whatever they want.
Well, because I'm just gonna say bullets. No, that's the wise.
It's a yearly thing, I have no
It's an
problem.
annual thing.
Just pull it from the consent, because we don't have a malaria outbreak.
Yeah, no, I don't.
I would rather deal with mosquitoes than get town sprayed with pesticides, in my personal opinion, so I would just vote no. So just pull it from the consent.
The 5-year pilot program, we talked about, and again, I'm gonna go through my questions and then I can email them to Frank, because I know Frank's gonna be here on Wednesday. But we talked about ensuring that free lessons took place for up to.
I spoke with...
No, I understand it's a separate agreement, I just want it all in the same, I wanna see that agreement when I'm voting on the pilot, or else I'm not gonna vote on the pilot.
So if we don't have that by Wednesday, the pilot's not going to go through, so somebody's coming to the job.
Well, hopefully we'll have it by Wednesday.
Yeah, but has anybody told them?
I told Fred today.
This is not Fred, has anybody told the man building?
I've spoken to John Leadersdorf about it.
Yeah.
Give me a spot.
He's
Yeah,
fine with
yeah,
that. He is
it's fine.
So
fine.
you need it in writing?
Agreed,
Okay.
but I'm assuming we would draw that up,
Yes.
not him.
Sure.
Well, tell Fred to call, listen, I don't want him, just tell him to call me if it's a problem. All right, I think that's it.
For the city council members, or the
Agenda.
No, that was it, just the mosquitoes.
Okay, I had something. 2015-15
say.
Okay, and then the last one, the second reading of the, I have it. Second reading of the ordinance for vacant property. The Page 2 and page 5 didn't seem to jive as far as like one says, no, yeah, page 2, 2B. Look at 2D and look at 5. And it says, look at section 5. One says the fee starts right away, the other one says it can be phased in.